Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written in the 6th century BC, presumably, by a guy Lao Tzu, and it's filled with all sorts of enigmatic wisdom and ways that we can live a more reasonable life. What I mean by living a reasonable life is living a life in which we sort of just accept responsibility for our experience, while we allow others the freedom to have their experience and do what they're doing. That means if we're surrounded by people that are angry with us, but we're content with what we're doing, we have to be able to look at it and just say, well, maybe that's their problem. But if they're upset with us and that upsets us, well, now we have something to look at. If we're finding ourselves surrounded by people that are toxic and whatnot, we have to ask ourselves, what's bringing me here? What am I doing to be surrounded by this? Now, when we're children, we don't have the freedoms, and we don't have the ability to, care for ourselves the way that, in a way that we'd be able to escape that necessarily. So what ends up happening is that when we're children, we often create a frame of reference of the world. And when we're feeling threatened, that frame of reference comes to the fore, and we start to look at our perceptions from that perspective. We start to see the world from a perspective of, I'm in danger. We start to see the world from a perspective of, I'm vulnerable. I'm not being cared for. I'm not important. It's not like when you were children, you weren't being treated as if you were important, but it could have become a frame of reference because you didn't know how you were being treated, because you had never been treated before. And then so while you were crying, if your mother left the room, even if it was to, get a diaper so that she can change you, you may have internalized her leaving the room as, what I want isn't important. And so that's what ends up happening. We misinterpret things because we have no frame of reference. We've never experienced this before. We show someone our need, and then the way that they respond to that, and even if their response to that is, hey, I'm going to take care of your needs, you may not interpret it that way because you've never seen your needs met by this person before. This is the first time they're doing it, right? This is you're being born. You say, I need something. And then the first thing they do is leave. Now, because we have no object permanence at that time, them disappearing could create deep trauma. Deep trauma about my needs aren't met. And when I ask someone for my needs, they leave. Now, even if that was just for a short period of time, if things like that had happened a couple times, you may create a frame of reference around that. And when your frame of reference is around that, you start to perceive the world as like, well, one, I have needs. Other people leave. And now every perception that you have, every time we look out at the world, every time we have an experience, we start to fill in the gaps of the story, because there's always gaps in the story. We start to fill in the gaps of the story with what our frame of reference is, how we picture the world, how we understand the world to be. And if we understand the world to be in place that our needs aren't met, if we understand the story to be, I am the one that's responsible. If we have this story that, like, all of these things as they come up, like that's ways that we start to move ourselves into the unreasonable. It's ways we start to move ourselves into living unreasonable, because now we're saying the way you do things, right, is wrong because it's making me feel uncomfortable. And I think a lot of things have gone in that direction of like, well, we got to make sure kids are comfortable. Well, yeah, I agree. And we got to make sure adults are comfortable. And I agree that. But there is a responsibility on their part. And there is a responsibility on our part to not blame others for our uncomfortableness. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a random number today. And if anybody is out there who wants to pick a number, just step right up, and I'd love to chat with you about the Tao Te Ching. If you have any questions, or if you just want to pick a number, talk about where you're at the moment. I picked a random number. We look at number 28 today. 28 is knowing there's depth in the shallow. Knowing there's depth in the shallow. Just looking at that title, and I know this piece, and I know, Melissa thinks I'm making a lot of sense this morning. Is that rare? No, I'm teasing. But knowing there's depth in the shallow. Many of us are going to, as we are venturing into a world of taking care of ourselves and being just new person, maybe we're loving ourselves more, maybe we're caring about ourselves more, we're going to feel that we're getting deep, and we are getting deep. That's true. But there's depth in your shallowness as well. The shallowness, let's call pettiness shallow. Let's call anger shallow. If we look at those aspects of ourselves, those are the aspects of ourselves that we don't like that we engage. We don't like that we engage in pettiness. Well, we don't like that we engage in pettiness because pettiness is shallow and it's not helping me get deep relationships. It's not helping me understand myself and all of these things. So, but there's depth in the shallow because that shallowness inspires you to be better. Because that shallowness is telling you, I don't like that I do this. That shallowness is giving you the feeling that you don't like that you do something. Now, if you cannot judge that and move on, continue doing it until you don't, and keep a relationship with that thing, like, hey, I don't like that I'm doing this. Okay, good. Can you stop doing it? At the moment, no. Or at the moment, yes. And if no, that's fine. There's depth in here too, because it is moving me into a direction of being myself more than I was yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and read this, and I'll go through it and see. I don't want anybody to think that that's important to me. I'm going to do it. And if you wanted to join me for a number, I'd love to have you up. But knowing the world through the masculine. Know the world through the masculine, but access your power through the feminine. In this way, you will be open to receive. If you can receive, then your actions will support. It will never be forced, and you will be innocent. Know the world through the light, but connect to it within the dark. In this way, you will be open to the truth. If you can see the truth, manifestation will not fool you. It will fall away, and nothing will elude you. Know the world through the particular, but no, there is no particular here. In this way, you will accept all things. If you can accept all things, you will be a beacon that will guide you and all beings back to source. The manifestation was formed from the void. The master knows the manifestation, yet stays focused on the void within it. That is how she uses all things. So in this, we have 4 pairings, let's say, of depth and shallowness. And when I say shallow, once again, it's not to discredit it. It's not to say that it's a bad thing. It's not to put it on a measuring stick. There's something that's deep and there's something that's shallow. When you go into the ocean, as you walk in, it's shallow. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfect as it is, but it's shallow. And the further you go out, it becomes deep. There's no judgment here. It's just that's the way it is. It's like this is shallow, this is deep. Okay. Like one creates the other. They're both water, and they both have their purpose. Neither is better than the other. You know, maybe if you don't want to tread water for hours, you might, not want to be in a deep section of the ocean alone for weeks, right? But being in the shallows, like, you can dip in and out, you can stand, you can do all of those things. So there's nothing inherently good or bad about deep or shallow. And when we talk about these pairings, right, we talk about the masculine, know the world through the masculine, know the world through the rules, know the world through the manifestation, know the world through what you can see. But access your power through the feminine. Access your power through the depth of connection. Your connection doesn't have to be always physical. Your connection doesn't have to always be surrounded by rules. Your connection to someone doesn't always have to be conspicuous and outward, right? That's the masculine. You can know the world through the masculine. You can know your relationships with people through the masculine. But you access your power and your power of connection through the feminine. And that's by not dictating how things will be. Because it says in here, in this way you will be open to receive. Right? The masculine is not always open to receive. It's very rarely open to receive. Right? And if we look at that sexually, right? There's the masculine part and the feminine part. Which one receives? The feminine. In this way, you will be open to receive. If you can receive, then your actions will support. If you can receive from those around you, receive their love, receive their care, receive them as they are without the rules about how they're supposed to be, then your actions will support. They'll support them and they're going to support you as well. This will never be forced, and you are innocent, and you will be innocent. This is the thing. When you don't force things, when you don't try to manipulate others, when you don't try to get other people to do certain things for you, and you have no expectations and other things like that, you will be innocent. Now, that doesn't mean your innocence might not trigger you at some point. So if someone claims that you're not innocent, that claiming you're not innocent might trigger you, sure. But that doesn't mean you weren't innocent. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. But it is going to be a good idea for you to look at it. Were you trying to manipulate a situation? Were you trying to make someone feel something that maybe they didn't feel, or do something that they didn't want to do? Or were you trying to dictate how another person was going to be? That's not innocent. You're not allowing them to be who they are. This is why you can know the world through the masculine, know your desires, know your expectations, know all those, but access your power through the feminine. Access your power through the ability to receive from all beings, to receive from everybody just who they are and what they are. You don't have to tell them who they are. You don't have to remind them of what they're here to do. They're good. Like you can, but if they don't listen to you, that's fine too. Then it says, know the world through the light, but connect to it within the dark. In this way, you will be open to the truth. If you can see the truth, manifestation will not fool you. It will fall away and nothing will elude you. We look at this in terms of we can look at it in terms of the news. We can look at it in terms of social media. We can look at it in terms of, all the light that's coming from your computer screen, all the light that's coming, that's bouncing off the newspapers and all of that. That's all telling story. And all that story benefits somebody. Whether if it benefits the paper because they sell more papers, whether it benefits the news source because they get more clicks, whether it benefits the companies that advertise for them because they get more money. It benefits all of these people, right? Once again, we kind of can go to the masculine and feminine. Are any of those sources open to receive? Or are they just the masculine? That's the light. That's the light that this is talking about. Know the world through the light. Know the world through what you can see, but connect to it within the dark. Connect to it with your eyes closed. Connect to it in your stillness. Connect to the world around you in stillness. Not with all of the hype, not with all of the stories, all of the, the stress, all of the stuff that's all bursting at the seams at the moment too. In this way, you will be open to the truth. Do we know what's true today with all the social media? And we don't know. We're just guessing. For the most part, we're just guessing. We're trying to say, oh, well, that seems like a reasonable idea, or that seems like it's right, but is it? Know the world through the light, but connect to it within the dark. Connect to it within your heart. Connect to the world. And it's not, do I feel like this is true? Connect to it within yourself. It doesn't matter what's true, because what's happening within you is what matters. If you can see truth, manifestation will not fool you. It will fall away and nothing will elude you. And the truth is that we're all human. And love is something that everybody deserves. And something that if we keep it from one person, if we keep our love from one person, we're keeping our love from ourselves. And that's the truth. If we decide one person is not deserving of our love, then somewhere within ourselves, we are not deserving of our love. There's a part of us that's not deserving of our love. And I can talk for hours about that. I can talk for hours about the idea that and still it would be hard to understand if you're in a place where it is beneficial for some reason or another in your perception to keep love from somebody or to keep love from a group of people. Because that's not what you would want to do for you. You want to love all of yourself. And so you have to find all of those parts of yourself, all those little tiny parts of yourself that you don't love. And that is being shown to you moment to moment in the world around you. Susan's going to join me. Hey, Susan, how are you, dear?
John, how are you?
I'm doing wonderfully.
Good.
Life is easy.
I know it is. But on this topic, I have a but.
Okay, all right.
I have a person that just irritates the hell out of me.
Mm.
This person
Good
talks
for you.
and talks and talks and talks to the point where I get exhausted.
Yeah.
How do I get over this? How do I get past it? I talk all the time. I'm pretty quiet.
Yeah. Well, when they're talking, what is the I'll just use the word complaint that's going on quietly in your head?
Just shut up. I just, it's
So
droning.
what pops out to me is and just so I always look at you, so what I do is I'll just kind of say, oh, well, what is this in you? And I will say, well, what is like, and I would look at your conspicuous past, right? The past in which you had horses and houses and cars and all of the things and the conspicuousness of all that. And I would think that might resonate as similar. This idea of like this person overly proving themselves, overly filling space, overly saying that they, they're taking up space in this moment. And
do you think it's because they feel less? They feel
well, I cannot say why they do what they do. I can tell you that, like, you wanting them to shut up. The first thing that popped in my head, it was like this relationship you had with the world around you, where you had to constantly prove yourself, constantly say something.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there may be in you still, and maybe that's even coming to the fore more than before. Like, just sort of like, man, I can't believe I needed so much from so many people all the time. So much praise, so much.
That's exactly what I was thinking last night.
So that when you can love that excessive and that excessive past, and when you can love that journey within yourself that you are, and really just be like, you know what, and when the term shut up comes, it can be a lot of things. One could be the judgment, shut up, and it could be the way that you acted in terms of constantly wanting to receive either praise or like support in your consumption and in your conspicuousness and stuff. And so she like, your experience of her and the frustration, she is a mirror for you. Now, she will shut up once you do.
In my head.
Yeah. And in your feelings. And when you realize that when you were like that, even though it wasn't with words, it was with consumption. I mean, maybe it was with words, I don't know. But when you were like that, you deserved love too. And you wanted people to, and so you can understand. What's that? Yeah, you craved it, and that's it. And she's craving it. And then, now, what your experience of what she's craving and what she's craving are two totally different things. She's craving whatever it is she's craving. Maybe it's attention. She's craving maybe she's craving noise or talking because she can't stand the silence. Maybe she's craving. Like you don't know what she's craving, and what she's craving has nothing to do with you. But the trigger that you're experiencing, the frustration that you're experiencing, has everything to do with you, and she can't do anything about that. But you can do something about her talking by dealing with what's coming up for you through her talking. Now, does that mean she's going to stop talking? No. But it does mean that you will either be open to her talking, or she will take her talking somewhere else.
That's going to happen.
Well, not now, right? if that's the way you're going to go about it, like. Well, not with that attitude, it's not.
I know. I'm not being a good girl. I'm not having
Pick a number.
Good thoughts. 4.
4.
Right out of my head, 4. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the void. Tao is the void, and the void is within everything. As it relates to what is perceptible, like your buddy's voice, everything is mostly void. As the origin of everything, it is hidden within every particular thing. The master knows it is even the source of God, and yet others still go on searching. When this one ends with that, and yet others still go on searching. And I think about like you searching that silence, searching that quiet and stuff. It's like, oh, it is even within this conversation that I'm being talked at rather than communicate. Like even that void exists in there. And we still go on searching for another experience. We want a different experience, but I'm telling you, everybody that I know that I worked closely with and stuff, like when they apply this sort of thing that I'm talking about, they are surprised at how everybody around them changes, and they don't. The people around them don't change. It's the way that you perceive the people around you that change.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the thing is when I say she's going to go somewhere else, you're going to perceive her going somewhere else. You're going to perceive her talking less. Or you're going to perceive because you aren't so. And my guess is that your consumption when you were younger, and when you were, working and all of this, that stems from something that came before it.
Right.
And so there is a deep, there's a deep, frame of reference that you're carrying with you of what the world is, how the world acts, and how you are within it. And that is, even though you're not working anymore, even though you're not doing these things anymore, there's still like, right. So you're, although it's not coming in your relationships, it's not coming in your work, it's coming in the form of this now, because you still, if you don't learn the lesson, and the lesson isn't just, oh, A plus B is C, like if the lesson is deep and very personal to you. And if you can't miss a step, right? If you're walking up the steps, if you miss one, you're gonna trip up, and you're gonna have to go back and touch that step. You got to touch every step.
Yeah.
Even if it's just briefly, because you are built off of every experience that you had. And a lot, and you're not, even though we talk about like be present. Well, when you're present, you're getting messages. And every time you get frustrated, there's a message about who you are and about like how you want her to stop. Well, that's not reasonable.
Right. It's not.
It's reasonable to tell her, okay, well, I just don't want you to come around anymore. But, that you're only going, my interpretation of things like that is you're only going to see it show up somewhere else. If you get rid of her, someone else is just going to come along and do it.
Sure.
It might not be about talking. It might be about something else. It might be,
sure.
but it's going to trigger the same thing within you.
I'm just starting to figure things out that I suppressed for a long time.
Yeah.
I guess everybody does that. Mm-hmm. But there are things that I literally forgot in my past. Forgot it completely. And they just pop up.
Especially now that you're doing this work, you are inviting it up.
Oh, tell me about it. Last night I was awake from like 12:30 on. I've been awake and just mind boggled. Mm-hmm. But good. I'm starting to figure things out where things came from.
It's a journey, and the thing is when you're closed off to all of it, you're really just holding the ocean back with a broom. It's like it's gonna, and every time you get upset and stuff that stuff back in the closet and stuff. I was talking. There's that metaphor of like opening up your closet, everything's spilling out. And it's like, and that's what we do for a long, long time. And we can ease the work by taking drugs, by consuming, by sex, by all sorts of things. We can do that. Yeah, food, all stuff like that, and so once that, once we start to really pull things up, then we don't pacify as much. So there's less sugar, there's less drugs, there's less alcohol, there's less stuff, there's less, all of these things. And then we start thinking clearer. And then, and that's just a natural process. It's just a natural process of loving ourselves, really.
It's a relief.
Yeah,
such a relief.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then when eventually you'll have an experience like, this woman can't shut up. What's wrong with me? Rather than this woman can't shut up. What's wrong with her? You'll be like, right. I don't think she can shut up. Well, why am I attracting this? Or what's going on with me that it's frustrating at all? Because she's well within her right not to shut up.
Yeah, she is.
She's dealing with whatever she's dealing with. And like it says, Tao is the void, and the void is within everything. It's even within that conversation. And in your mind, it might be like, damn right, it's all void. But
everything. No, I can't say that. Never mind.
Right. But, and then it says the master even knows it's the source of God. So even this that you're taking on, this frustration that you're feeling, is the source of God. And yet others still go on searching. We're going to search. Oh, I want silence. Well, God's going to come as he comes. And he doesn't, it's not going to be in the way that you want it to be necessarily. And so when you can see God in this, then you can see yourself, and you can love yourself, and you can love the parts of you that she's knocking on the door of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and again, those are for two totally different reasons. She's talking for one reason, and you're being triggered for a whole nother reason, and they have nothing to do with one another. That's why you can't help her shut up, and she can't help you not listen.
I will work on this, Martin John.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to take some work.
Oh, I bet. It's tough,
very
man.
Irritating to me, so I'll have to figure this one out and where this is coming from. I've gotten some of the answers, but boy, do I have a lot more coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes, for myself, when people talk, I don't get triggered. I go somewhere else. Like not necessarily physically. I'm just kind of like,
mentally.
you're gonna talk, and there's nothing I can do, and there's no space for me anyway. It's not about me.
Perfect. Yeah. I will certainly try this. I will work on it.
I know. Thank you so much for coming up. I appreciate
Thank you, Martin John. Talk to you again.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye. All right, I'm going to go back to 28, where I was. I did have someone else in line, in the queue, but they dropped out. But so if anybody wants to come up, please, feel free, to come up. There's a wonderful conversation I had with Susan. And yeah, when we're having triggers, our trigger is ours. What's triggering us is something completely different. We're not the victim, and we can grow. So I'm going to go ahead and read 28 again for those of you who are new, or I'm going to bring up Melissa, actually, because she came up. I'm making sense today?
Yes, well, you make sense every day, but it was
okay, good.
sense to situations that I'm dealing with, and even your talk with Susan, I'm like, why does all of this sound like it's directed right at me? Be something, you don't listen, Melissa. I need to take Susan's advice. Shut up, just shut up and listen. Shut up, Melissa. So I had to come up and tell you I'm going to, like my friend Susan was just saying, and this work is not fucking easy, man.
No.
Woo!
Well, I would.
I know you think everything's easy, Martin John.
Everything's easy. Well, you're right. It's not comfortable. That's for sure. And it does require a lot of you.
But sure.
But that's only because of all of the influence that you've been living under. If that was never there, you would already be you. And it's all these influences that and the frames of reference and the resistance that we've felt in the world around us that make it difficult. And I'm going to say this, and I know it's going to sound very, very odd, but
let me take a breath first.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's only not easy because of those externals. It's only not easy because it was so hard for you to align with all of the manipulation and all of the influence. It was hard for you to align with all of the influence. But because you were young and because you had no choice, you had to. But that was difficult. That's what was difficult. And now all that you created in your mind so that you could live under the influence of everything else and survive, because it was about survival. Getting rid of that is going to be difficult. Yes, it's going to seem difficult because this is the first time you've done it. But you're doing so great. This is like, and like the scene in The Matrix came to mind. This is the first time you've used your eyes. Why do my eyes hurt? It's the first time you've used them. Yeah. And that's really sort of what's going on. This is the first time you're really seeing yourself because you've been under the influence of society and your parents and the school system and reward and punishment and all of that. And none of that is real. You are real.
It's all an illusion that I'm creating.
Well, it was created for you, and then you decided to participate in the creation of it because it was easier. And I get it. We all do that. There's nothing wrong with it. But as an adult, I feel you have much more to offer, especially now in the world, than anything that anyone ever thought you could offer. So I want to celebrate you.
Well, thank you. I want to celebrate me too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. Let's pick a number.
Okay, I'm going to need a random one because nothing's popping out at me today. I'm seeing all these numbers while I'm driving, but I'm like, no, I don't know. So, not really feeling
Well, 20
one,
came up for you.
Okay.
20 is entitled Stop Learning.
Oh, Jesus, Martin John. Lord help me. I'm so sorry for calling your name out like that, but oh my goodness. Wait, let me take another deep breath to get ready for this, Martin John. Okay. Oof.
Okay, so it says, stop learning. It has not been helpful. There is no difference. There is no difference between yes and no, nor between good and evil. Most people would never know that. They define the manifestation as others have and foolishly give up themselves in favor of that. Everyone else wants to be excited. I prefer the darkness. I prefer to not care. Like a fool, I have no direction. Everyone else has abundance while I seem to have lost it all. Within me, there is no striving. It appears I am in chaos. Ordinary men look bright and intelligent, while I alone seem dull and confused. Aimless as if on the sea, drifting with nowhere to rest. I don't aspire to be like others. I am nourished by the Tao.
Wow. Oh my.
I can't think of a better, from what we were talking about before. When it says here, most people never know that. They define the manifestation as others have and foolishly give themselves up.
That foolishly giving themselves jumped out at me when you said that. I was like, oh, ouch.
Yeah. That was exactly what we were talking about.
Chaos last two, the chaos
Yep.
jumped out too. I'm like, oh, this is another one. See, I knew I had to take a deep breath before you even started, my friend. I knew it. Woo! Wow.
You know, and that's the thing. Every time we learn something about like relationships. We learn something about how we're supposed to be in school. We learn from our parents how we're supposed to be in the world. And the thing is as we learn those things, we solidify those lessons, and then our lives unfold from that root rather than us living in the actual moment and saying, well, what is this? Far out. What's going to happen here? We presuppose what's going to happen. We determine what's going to happen well before we ever have an experience. And we determine that because of the experiences that we've picked up along the way already, and the frames of reference that we have foolishly given up ourselves for. You still with me? No, you dropped off. Sometimes, like, you're coming back. So let's see. So most people, I want to let you speak. You want to say something?
And I'm like, Martin, John, I know you're telling me something that I need to hear. Why is the universe keeping me from my lesson?
So what happened? Did the app just crash?
I couldn't hear you. Like the little circle, the little thing that goes around you that's white that shows when you're talking. It was showing that you were talking, but I couldn't hear anything. And then my phone said poor internet connection. And I'm like, no, I need to hear what Martin John is saying. This is important stuff.
It is important.
So I left and I came back so I could hear what you were telling me.
It's interesting, these two sections. That's like everyone else wants to be excited. I prefer the darkness. I prefer to not care. Like a fool, I have no direction. And then everyone else has abundance, while I seem to have lost it all. Within me, there's no striving. It appears I am in chaos. Those two sections, those two groupings of words, they seem to take us out of what we're talking about, but when we look at this, like everyone else wants to be excited, and like that's about fanfare. It's about being followed. It's about like having people praise you, getting promotions or having money or having, like Susan and I were talking about in terms of like the idea of, consuming things. I prefer the excitement of consumption. I prefer the excitement of having these opportunities. And that says, I prefer the darkness. I prefer to not care. It's just like, well, I don't care what's going to happen. Like, let's see what happens. Let's just be here to see what happens. Rather than I have an expectation for this experience. And then it says, like a fool, I have no direction. It's like, I'm not working on a career. I'm living my life. I'm not trying to be something specific. I am something specific, and I'm connected to everything. And, then I really like this line, everyone else has abundance. Because, like, I think this idea that this assumption that you're not abundant for whatever reason, right? That's coming from the ideas that you picked up, right? And that's they define the manifestation as others have, and foolishly give themselves up in favor of that. For those of us who don't feel like we're abundant, well, the only reason you feel that way is because you learned that you weren't by looking outside of yourself and looking at other people and measuring and all of this. Your abundance has never been in question until you start putting the desire to have an experience of not being abundant, because you learned that was what everybody else was doing around you or whatever, But abundance it's everywhere. the abundance of love, abundance of food. And yes, okay, it might be hard to manifest money and other things like that, like a lot of people can struggle with that. But then there are some people who they trip over money, And so it's not that you're not abundant. It's that maybe you're defining abundance in a way that others have. And that's not aligning with your experience.
Soaking it all in, my friend. Soaking it all in. Working on my stillness and maturation, Martin John.
Yeah. It's good to, maturity is so hard to find in the world today. Like true maturity. You find childishness in everybody. And the thing is it's difficult to call someone out on their childishness, especially when they're in a position above you, because all they have to do is say, well, if I'm so childish, why do I have this position? Burp, burp, and it's like, oh God, like that's childish. And like the argument that you're making is childish, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult to really, and then that's why, because when you're truly mature, you're going to get to a place where it's like, I prefer the darkness. I prefer to not care. I seem to have lost it all. Within me, there is no striving. You are being. That's maturity.
I keep hearing that phrase, true words are not comforting, and comforting words. Yeah, that
are never true.
Up for me.
Yeah. And then like this last line, I don't aspire to be like others. I am nourished by Tao.
I definitely don't aspire to be like others, Martin John. As I told you, I think somebody said about me that I march to the beat of a different drummer. And you know what? Sometimes I'm making up the damn beat as I go along. And it's okay. It's all right to be different. And I, I, for a long time, struggled with that. But I'm learning to see how wonderful it is.
Yeah. And it is, and to be you is mature. To allow yourself to be who you are. And, I was reading, I think it was the 28 that I was reading when I was talking about you are innocent. Right? Be innocent by not trying to manipulate those around you. Be innocent by trying to support them for who they are, who they present themselves to be. Whether you don't have the right or the knowledge to say that's not who you are. So, you're just going to love them as they present themselves. And when you do, hopefully they'll realize that they're defining the manifestation as others have, and they don't have to do that either. They can be who they are. And they can, maybe that means they have to eat crow because that's not who they've been not being honest with themselves. Maybe it means, but you inspire them by loving them and not asking them to be different.
So when you say manifestation, and this word has been troubling me for a minute, are you talking about the way things appear? Is that what you mean when you say manifestation?
So
you say that word a lot, and I'm confused by it. That's why I asked.
Yeah, let me see if I can find my Tao workshop. I did a workshop on Tao at Satnam, and I wrote definitions of these things so that the people that were
I
that
like
were
definitions.
there.
They're very good
and I think
mind.
that would help if I can find it. Let me just see if I can find the workbook. No, I can't. All right,
Well,
let me
you
go.
know how to get in touch with me. When you
Yeah,
find it, you can send it to me. And I mean, when I think that a lot when I hear you say manifestation, I'm like, am I thinking of this the way he means it? Like, am I understanding
well,
this correctly?
so I mean, the the manifestation is all right, I'm going to stop looking for this, and I'll get it to you at some point. The definition,
Okay.
and maybe I'll even read it in the show at some point. The manifestation is simply what is physical, right?
Okay.
What is around us and is physical, right? The manifestation is now how you experience the physical. This is how you're experiencing manifestation. So you experience manifestation. And so when we talk about manifestation, it is simply just what you can experience. Like your mind is part of manifestation. Your body is part of manifestation. You are not, right? Like those two aspects of you are in the world. Your ideas, your thoughts, your presuppositions, your all of those things are just part of the manifestation. And when you see something, your mind grabs it and examines it and spits out a definition. That's all manifestation. Now, when you're still, you quiet yourself and you look at yourself and you know that you're more than this body and you know that you're more than these thoughts, that is Tao, for lack of a better word. Like that's you connected to all things. That's your ability to connect with me. That's your ability to connect with other people. Your relationship, even though it's not, it's abstract. It's not necessarily a physical thing. Is encapsulated in the masculine, is encapsulated in rules and experiences and all of this stuff. That is manifestation. Does that help at all?
Yeah, kind of. I'm still struggling with it. It's kind of like I'm thinking of it like the Matrix, because you made that connection earlier.
Right.
So all that stuff that like appears like illusion, it's not. It's there, but it's not really there. Because what truly is me. Am I understanding that correctly or no?
Well, it's your experience of it, Let me see. I think I found the thing. Yeah. Let me see if I can find the definition. Oh, nope, that's not it. Okay. Well, I'll find it for you.
Okay. And you know where
awesome.
I said, how to get a hold of me.
Get it to you. Yeah, I can get it to you. That's easy enough. It's manifestation is everything that Tao is not, right? But Tao is everything. Tao is in all manifestation, but we perceive things as they are. And because we each perceive everything differently, this is how we can be fooled by manifestation, because you can experience one thing. Like Susan experienced one person is talking a lot. Someone else might be in the room and not experience that at all. They might be like, oh, I thought she was pretty quiet.
So like yesterday when my noon lesson told me to act as if, so I was acting as if I was confident and strong, even though I was feeling very much opposite of that. Is that would that be an example of manifestation?
Right. So manifestation is the act, and manifestation is the relationship that you have to the feeling of not feeling strong, right? So both of those are manifestation. That's manifestation kind of covering manifestation, where underneath you are still, you are underneath all of that. You aren't sad. Underneath all of that, you aren't confident. There's no reason to not be. There's no reason to measure it. All of those measurements are manifestation. But you, like when you sit still, and it doesn't matter if you're confident or sad or happy or anything, and then you just sit there and you just observe it, and you say, oh, far out. Melissa's sad today. Oh, look, far out. Noom vibe is telling me, or Noom is telling me to be confident. Okay, I'm going to do those things. And so that's all manifestation. You aren't either of those things. You are Melissa. You don't, it's not that you're sad. It's that you're having a trigger through other things and that's all. And that's a hard thing to wrap your head around because it's more than your experience. And this is why this one says stop learning. Right? Because it's like, it has not been helpful. There is no difference between yes and no. No difference between confidence and sadness. No difference between good and evil. No difference between, bored and excited. There's no difference.
So it's all the perception or the way I'm thinking about it.
Right. So
it's
most people would never know
that.
that.
On it.
Right. So they define the manifestation as others have. So when you're sad, how do you define that? You define it the way others have. Your sadness means that whatever that is. And then your happiness means that That's all stupid.
It is all stupid.
So there is no difference between yes and no. There's no difference between good and evil. Most people would never know that. They define the manifestation. They define their experience of the world around them. They define everything that they're doing as others have and foolishly give up themselves for that. You dropped. You can come back up if you'd like. They give up themselves in favor of those definitions that other people have helped them create in their lives. They foolishly give up themselves for sadness. Like you are not sad. Your body is having a sad moment, and your mind maybe is having sad thoughts. But you can literally get underneath that. Like I say underneath because when I meditate and do things like that, I kind of get underneath in this. I mean, there is no underneath, but that's kind of how I visualize it. I get underneath those feelings. And I'm like, it's kind of like, I've never scuba dived, but I can imagine, like, if it's storming out, once you go down a little bit under the surface of the storm and of all the waves and stuff, it's all the same. It's just ocean. And that's kind of how I experience the meditation in which I'm going to get underneath my feelings. Yes, I can be sad. I can have a sad day. I can have I had, I don't know if I'd call them sad days. I had a couple very still days over the last couple days. And what that caused me to do was just sit, not try and make it better, not try and do anything with them, just kind of sit and observe it. I don't have to define the manifestation as others have. I don't have to define my experience of feeling still as others have. There's people like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. And, I'm feeling very still. And when that happens, when that moment happens that I can kind of recognize that I'm feeling still, then I can just observe feeling still. I can be still in it. I don't have to define it as others have. Wandering Fool, you are muted. Was that purposeful?
Am I here?
You are here.
Okay. I got a weird little, how it drops you out of the room real quick.
Oh, yeah. How are you doing, dear?
It's been a very interesting morning.
Okay.
I hopped in the queue earlier, and as soon as I did, I got a call from one of my family members telling me that my mom was in the hospital.
Oh.
And one thing I noticed about my family, And what made it so interesting was how I immediately went back into eldest child mode, calming everybody down.
Yeah.
Because everyone in my family has blood pressure issues, but it's really closely tied to their emotional state. Like as soon as they get really emotional or they get in a panic, their blood pressure shoots through the roof.
Yeah.
And my family member called me in a panic, and I could tell she wasn't breathing. Like I could see the shallowness in her breath because she video called me. And now, a heart attack is off the table. My mother has asthma. And I just had to be the grounding force one more time, even though I've been away from my family. And I just started asking questions. I was like, okay, you know how y'all blood pressure gets when you're upset. You know that my mom has asthma. And since the EKG came back clear, I was like, okay, that's one. And I was like, so when's the last time she had an asthma attack? And my sister was like, I don't even know. I say, what time of year is it? And what time does her asthma flare up the worst? And she was like, yeah. And I could feel her calming down in the moment of just like, oh, okay. And then I asked her, how are you? She was like, my head is pounding. I was like, because your blood pressure is up because you're really in a heightened state. And I was just talking her through it because she was taking my daughter to school. And I was like, okay, I need everybody calm in this moment so that we cannot have this manifestation show up as something worse.
Right.
We have to look at it for the truth that it is, the light and the dark, the darkness that is, the void. What is this experience trying to show me in this void? And I was like, you are, without striving, exactly what they need in the moment.
Right.
So everybody's calm. I'm going to check in with my mom a little later. But you know how you get that gut feeling from knowing your family that it's asthma? Or is her diabetes flaring?
Right.
Because she had been doing good all last year, like no incidents at all. And I was like, okay, she's doing good. There is no collapse now that I'm not in the mix. And I was like, it was just interesting to watch the manifestation show up that quickly.
Yeah. Well, it's, you have a role both biologically and systemically through the family. Like people, everyone's looking to you. And biologically, you are equipped to take that role and to go with it. And we ask ourselves, like, do we like that we're doing this? And, maybe there is tension about doing it because of one thing or another, because maybe we're saying like, oh, well, I don't want to do this because I'm bitter. I don't want to do this because I'm holding a grudge. I don't want to do this. But if we get rid of all of those things, we get rid of the grudge, which is manifestation, right? That's an idea of what we have in ourselves. If we get rid of if all that's left is love, then yeah, maybe we still don't want to do it, but maybe we can do it, and maybe we will do it. But that's all yet to be seen. You took the call today, and it was perfect. And now you're in a different place. and everything's changed.
Yeah.
Do you have a number?
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, you broke up. What was that?
it's crazy. There's no bitterness. That's weird. Like,
Yeah.
I said, there's no bitterness.
No.
That's weird. Like, I immediately went into the space of just pure love today.
There is no...
Let's do 70.
70.
What were you saying?
70 is these teachings. These teachings are simple and transform lives, yet mere intellect cannot grasp them. These teachings are older than life and benefit all things, yet people prefer the manifestation. That's your bitterness, right? To prefer bitterness would be manifestation. Very few people will ever truly understand what is written herein, but for those few, these pages will guide them to themselves. Meanwhile, they will be labeled as coarse and uncaring. In the manifestation, they are seen as dull and disinterested, yet in their heart shines a light for all things. You know, when you step away from your family, you can be seen as coarse. You step away, and when you do things that are good for you, when you tell people that you're not going to live under their influence anymore, they will label you as coarse and uncaring. They're going to label you as disinterested in what the family is going through right now. But you show up and you just say, calm down. And they're just like, but it's right to be excited about her being in the hospital. It's like, that's etiquette to be excited about someone to be in the hospital, to be, overly concerned and to do all of these things. But that's harmful for you because of your blood pressure.
Right.
And if you get your panties in a wad over my mom being in the hospital, you're going to be the one next to her.
Yes, that's the exact. How did you know my train of thought? How did you know I was thinking that?
Well, you picked 70. I don't know. It's just here. So that's what it says, right? It says, meanwhile, they will be labeled as coarse and uncaring. In the manifestation, they are seen as dull and disinterested, yet in their heart shines a light for all things. So you not only are caring for your mom, you're caring for your auntie as well. And you're caring for all the other people that are in your life. And,
wow.
And just as you're approaching this, these teachings, you being able to be still and not get overly invested and not get overly emotional and not get overly taken out of yourself for this moment. That's not about intellect. That's not about knowing. And that's the thing. Your family right now is looking at intellect. They're going through their minds and they're stressing themselves out with all the things that they could imagine. And when we go back to number 20, stop your learning. It hasn't been helpful. Everyone's Googling stuff. Everybody's doing all this. This isn't that helpful. The only thing that's helpful is where this is taking us. And we don't know where that is yet. So calm down and let's just follow this path.
Yeah, that was pretty much my whole train of thought. Like I tend to talk to myself out loud. And she called me and said something quickly about her being in the hospital. And then another family member called her and she got off the phone really quickly. And in that moment, all I had was stay calm. Yeah. This was me, and I took a couple of deep breaths because I knew if I started to panic, everyone would panic.
They take it, and that's the thing. This is what it said earlier when we were talking. Like they define the manifestation as others have, and so like what they're doing is they're looking for people to define their surroundings, and then they'll push those boundaries. And that's like iteration, right? So this happens on the good side and the bad side. Like when you come in and are calm, people look to you and they're like, oh, wow, they're calm. Maybe I don't have to freak out. But then if I call you and I'm freaking out and then you decide to freak out, then I get to freak out even more. And then you freak out even more. And then we go into this cycle of freak out, rather than, okay, I'm going to be calm and everything's cool. And, what happens is going to happen and we're going to walk that path together. Okay, so let's do it. And if you are calm, then they'll be enticed or inspired, or at least get the feeling that being calm might be a good idea. It can be, just like, Susan's friend who's talking all the time. Maybe she's actually maybe her friend is starting to think, I don't like that I talk this much. And maybe she's at home kind of racking her brain about how she can be more quiet. Maybe not, but maybe because she's being inspired by Susan. Right? And so who knows how what we do affects other people? But that's why when the Tao says like being yourself will make you immortal. It make your life go on forever. And that's because you inspire people. You inspire people to be calm. And they're going to take that for this experience, but they may use it in other places in their life as well. And you'll never know that. And it's not for you to know. You just do your thing. Don't expect any praise. Don't expect any compensation, and do it anyway, because that's what you're called to do. That's what you're inspired to do.
Yeah. It was like a direct inspiration. Yeah. One more thing. Mm-hmm. When you were talking about those quiet days, I had a friend of mine at work, and she was like, last week, it seemed like you were having mental health days, like you were just quiet. And I was like, sometimes I just stay in the silence, and I don't focus on making my face look happy. I just allow what's there to be there, and I work through it. And the manifestation is, it looks like I'm having a hard time mentally, but inside of me, I'm just quiet. I'm just allowing what's there to go.
And again, it doesn't necessarily look like you're having a hard time mentally unless someone is aligned with seeing people having a hard time mentally because they may be having a hard time mentally.
Oh, man. I didn't even think about that.
So that has nothing to do with you. How you are seen when you are still is like you become a mirror for others.
Like still water. Right. Wait a minute. Hold up.
It's not hard.
It's not hard. But like I find myself being still more and more often without a care in the world because I'm just in flow, so to speak. Like I'm just here. Yeah. And whatever comes to me is coming. I'll let it flow as it flows. And I'm just there. And I'm the mirror. Hold on.
No, absolutely. And the more you can put your ego down, and put all of that, like you're supposed to do things down, then the more you can be a mirror for others. And that's what happens.
I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's always wonderful to connect. Yeah, that's just how it works. It's not, there's no magic. You guys are here doing you. And that's the most important thing. We need you. We don't need who you think you should be. We need you. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Martin John. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.